You ever have one of those mornings that feel completely ordinary, just coffee in hand, the news scrolling on your phone, a little chaos outside with traffic and people hustling to work, and then, bam, everything shifts? That was my Monday. I pulled into my usual parking spot outside the brick office building downtown. The spot I'd been claiming for years like it was my own little piece of order in the city, and it was gone. Not just taken, it was stolen. And there he was, Marlon, leaning casually against his glossy black SUV, phone in hand, smirking like he'd won a small but significant battle without even knowing it. I froze for a moment, gripping the wheel, feeling a mix of disbelief, irritation, and a creeping, almost electric anticipation. My coffee was still warm in the cup holder, but I forgot it, because in that instant, the morning ritual I counted on had been violated. I circled the block once, then twice, thinking maybe it was an accident, maybe someone was just visiting. But nope. Third time around, same smug SUV, same taunting smirk. And I realized, this wasn't random. It wasn't about a spot anymore. It was about territory, about respect. And this time, I wasn't going to let it slide. Marlon had always been like that, friendly enough to make you doubt yourself, casual enough to seem harmless. But underneath, he had this quiet way of asserting dominance. Months of subtle digs, missing spots, sorry, didn't see you there smiles, it all added up. And over time, that simmering irritation grew into something more potent, a desire to reclaim control, to flip the script in a way that was clever, not confrontational. I've never been the confrontational type. Shouting in a parking lot, passive-aggressive emails, dramatic complaints, it's all exhausting. But I'm not passive either. I started observing, timing arrivals, noting patterns, almost like a strategist mapping a battlefield. And then it hit me. This could be an opportunity. Not just a victory over Marlon, but a statement, executed with subtlety and precision. That's when Cassie came into play. She runs a small competitor company across town, sharp, confident, the kind of person whose very presence commands attention. Her team was growing, and downtown parking was a nightmare. And suddenly, the idea hit me like lightning. Sell it to her. Not just for profit, but to deliver a lesson in elegance, strategy, and a little poetic justice. The thought of Marlon losing his precious kingdom to someone he considered an outsider was almost delicious. I spent the afternoon drafting a plan, scribbling on napkins at my desk, timing comings and goings, calculating entry points, imagining scenarios. It was absurdly meticulous, like preparing for a mini urban heist, but entirely satisfying. I imagined Marlon circling the lot, trying to understand why the rules had suddenly changed, powerless to stop it, and I couldn't help but smile quietly. By late afternoon, I reached out to Cassie. Her reaction was exactly what I imagined. Eyes lighting up, that sharp grin, a mix of disbelief and excitement. "Wait, seriously?" she asked, leaning back in her chair. "This spot, it's mine." I nodded. "Yep, go claim it tomorrow morning. Watch the drama unfold." And that smile, small and conspiratorial, said everything. She understood the elegance of the plan. That night, I sat on my apartment balcony, coffee in hand, the city lights twinkling below, reflecting on the months leading to this moment. There was a tiny whisper of guilt. Maybe this was petty, maybe I'd gone too far, but the larger part of me felt justified. Months of subtle infringements, ignored complaints, and constant undermining had taught me patience, observation, and the power of timing. And the anticipation of tomorrow, imagining Marlon's reaction, was intoxicating. I thought about the absurdity too, a simple parking spot turned into a battlefield, a stage for strategy, psychology, and tiny victories. The ritual of morning routines, the hum of downtown. Traffic, even the smell of coffee from the cafe across the street. It all became part of the narrative, part of the drama I had orchestrated. And for the first time in months, I felt control, confidence, a quiet power that came not from confrontation, but from cleverness, patience, and timing. And there were the little cinematic details, the wind ruffling papers on the balcony, the honk of a car in the distance, Marlon's SUV glinting under the streetlight, the muted chatter of early commuters, all forming a backdrop for the payoff I had been waiting for. The anticipation, the planning, the subtle art of observation. It was almost meditative. Finally, I set my notes aside, checked the timing, and went to bed. I imagined tomorrow. Marlon circling, confused, Cassie gliding into the spot, serene and triumphant. That tension, that quiet electric thrill, was enough to keep me awake thinking, savoring every moment before it even happened. Because that, I realized, was the point. Not the asphalt, not the painted lines. The thrill was in the strategy, in the patience, in the timing. The quiet, clever moves that no one notices until the effect lands. And tomorrow, the stage would be set, the pieces in place, and the payoff. Oh, the payoff would finally arrive. The next morning, I woke up with this mix of excitement and nerves, the kind that makes your chest tight and your thoughts race faster than your heartbeat. I brewed my usual coffee, grabbed a toasted bagel from the kitchen, and watched the city streets slowly come alive. The honk of delivery trucks, the chatter of early commuters, the faint hiss of a cafe espresso machine across the street. And through it all, I kept thinking about Marlon, probably texting someone with that smug little grin, confident that this Monday would go exactly as he imagined. I parked a block away, pretending to scroll through emails, but my eyes kept darting toward the lot. Every instinct told me to stay calm, blend in, act normal, but inside, my pulse was electric. And then I saw her, Cassie, sliding smoothly into the spot, her gray sedan glinting in the morning sun, windows down, hair tousled by the breeze, sunglasses perched perfectly on her nose. She waved casually, that small conspiratorial wave that said, "I know exactly what's happening, and I'm enjoying it." Marlon's reaction was immediate. He stopped mid-step, foot hovering over the brake, eyes narrowing, lips pressing into a thin line. And then the dawning realization spread across his face, the kind that happens when you realize the rules have changed and you weren't consulted. I stepped out of my car slowly, coffee in hand, letting him stew for a few seconds before speaking. "Oh, that's Cassie's spot now," I said lightly, gesturing toward her car. He blinked, his jaw twitching. "You sold it?" "To her." His voice cracked slightly. I nodded, taking a slow sip from my cup, the morning sun warming my hands. "Yep, she needed it. I figured it was time for a change. Things move on." There was a long pause. Marlon's body language screamed disbelief. Hands clenched, shoulders stiff, eyes darting as if searching for some loophole, some escape hatch. Cassie gave me a small, almost imperceptible grin, calm and collected, radiating that quiet satisfaction that comes from knowing you're part of a clever plan. You could have told me," he muttered, more to himself than to me. "We could have talked about this." I leaned back slightly, shrugging like it was just another morning. "We did talk. For months. You didn't listen. This works better." Cassie let out a soft laugh, just enough to punctuate the tension, and I swear I saw the slightest twitch in his jaw, a mix of annoyance, grudging respect, and disbelief. I watched him circle the block slowly afterward, every loop a mix of frustration and quiet calculation. It was almost poetic, the way someone who spent months asserting dominance now recalibrated each move, unsure of how to regain control. And yet, it was strangely satisfying. Not maliciously, not cruelly, just quietly. Cassie and I texted throughout the morning, quietly laughing about possible what-if scenarios. Marlon sneaking in disguise, occupying fire lanes, sending melodramatic office-wide emails about territorial rights. It was ridiculous, absurd even, but that absurdity made the victory sweeter. There was comedy, yes, but also a lesson in strategy, observation, and timing. By midweek, the subtle psychological ripples became apparent. Marlon moved differently, slower, more cautious, glancing over his shoulder, taking a longer route to avoid confrontation. His posture was tense yet controlled, his usual confident swagger replaced with careful calculation. And I observed all of it quietly, feeling a sense of satisfaction that came not from aggression, but from subtlety and intellect. The parking spot had transformed into something more than asphalt and white lines. It became a microcosm of human behavior, a study in patience, ego, and power. Every small gesture, every hesitation, every glance told a story, and I found myself noticing the rhythm of it all, how people arrived, how they adjusted to each other, how control shifted silently and invisibly. One afternoon, Marlon cornered me at the office coffee machine. He leaned in slightly, voice low, careful, as if the wrong word could undo his fragile dignity. "So, "This Cassie thing," he said cautiously. "How long is this supposed to last?" I sipped my coffee slowly, letting the pause linger. "As long as she wants," I replied, almost gently, letting the weight of truth settle. His eyes flickered downward for a moment, the kind of hesitation that happens when someone recalculates their own sense of authority. "I guess I need to recalibrate," he muttered finally, shifting from one foot to the other. And there it was, watching a man reconcile with a loss he never anticipated. Fascinating, almost like a natural experiment in ego, pride, and adaptation. Part of me felt a flicker of sympathy, but the larger part quietly reveled in the elegance of the situation. Cassie's role was perfect. She was composed, confident, just enough playful glee in her smile to underline the victory without mocking. We joked later via text, imagining Marlon disguised, sneaking, trying to reclaim his territory. The absurdity only amplified the thrill of success. By midweek, the patterns were clear. Marlon had adjusted, but with a quiet tension. Every arrival, every departure, every minor interaction in the lot had changed. And I realized something crucial. Victory in life, often, isn't about loud confrontation. It's about observation, patience, and precise timing. That asphalt, those white lines, were symbolic. Subtle moves, unnoticed until the effect lands, often carry the deepest satisfaction. And then came the morning that crystallized the lesson completely. I was heading to my car after a long meeting, coffee in hand, when I noticed Marlon standing at the lot entrance, arms crossed, scowling slightly, the familiar tension in his shoulders. He glanced at Cassie's car, then at me, and let out a half-laugh, half-grunt, the kind people make when they're trying to mask defeat with dignity. "All right," he muttered finally, "you win. I get it. You and her, you win." He walked away, and I couldn't help but chuckle softly at the perfect absurdity of it all, ridiculous, petty, and yet satisfying in its precision. That evening, I stayed late at the office, watching the lot empty, cars pulling away, people oblivious to the drama that had unfolded over asphalt. The city hummed around me, delivery trucks, a distant siren, the faint clink of cups from the cafe, and I reflected on the week, the months leading up to it, and realized something important. Life often teaches lessons in miniature. A parking spot can reveal patience, strategy, and self-awareness in ways that few grand gestures ever could. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Marlon. I opened it cautiously, expecting snark. Instead, "All right, well played. Not just about the spot, huh?" I stared, then smiled. That single line summed it all up. The quiet elegance of strategy, the satisfaction of a lesson delivered without confrontation. Cassie called shortly after, laughter bubbling through the phone. "You should see him," she said. "He's recalculating life itself. This is amazing." I laughed, leaning back in my chair. The absurdity, humor, and strategic satisfaction all coalesced into a profound lesson. Patience, observation, timing, and subtlety often outweigh confrontation. Even in victory, a lingering thought remained. Life's small conflicts mirror larger dynamics. Control is rarely absolute. Rules are often invisible, and sometimes the smallest, quietest moves, executed with precision, carry the weightiest lessons. By Friday afternoon, the lot had settled into a new rhythm. Cassie moved confidently, Marlon recalibrated subtly, and I finally exhaled, coffee in hand, smiling at the absurd, elegant, and deeply satisfying arc of it all. The asphalt was ordinary to anyone else, but to me, it was a battlefield, a chessboard, a theater of subtle victories, ego, and human psychology. By Friday afternoon, the week had reached its peak, and the city felt different somehow. The lot outside the brick office building had settled into a new rhythm. Marlon, once so confident and territorial, moved cautiously now. His shoulders were slightly hunched, his usual swagger replaced by careful glances, subtle hesitations, as if recalibrating each step to avoid embarrassment. And though he tried to act normal, his tension radiated, quiet but unmistakable, like a storm cloud holding back thunder. Cassie, on the other hand, was radiant, sliding smoothly into the spot, hair tousled by the morning breeze, sunglasses perfectly perched. She waved casually at me. That small, conspiratorial smile said everything. She knew exactly what had happened, understood the subtlety, and was quietly enjoying the victory. I couldn't help but laugh softly at the elegance of it all. The absurdity, the smallness of the battlefield, and yet the psychological weight. It was perfect. Marlon noticed, of course. His jaw twitched, a hand flexed against his side as he tried to mask frustration, and I could see the gears turning behind his eyes. Disbelief, irritation, and perhaps the tiniest flicker of admiration for a move he didn't see coming. I let the moment hang. No words, no confrontation. Just the quiet satisfaction of a lesson learned. Later that afternoon, I found myself at the office coffee machine, the aroma of espresso and toasted bagels filling the air. Marlon approached, cautious, careful. "So, this Cassie thing," he began quietly, voice low. "How long is this supposed to last?" I sipped my coffee, letting the silence stretch, letting him absorb the weight of reality. "As long as she wants," I said lightly, letting the subtle truth land. His eyes flickered down for a moment, hesitation written clearly across his features, the acknowledgement that the rules had changed. "I guess I need to recalibrate," he muttered finally, shifting from one foot to the other. And there it was, watching a man reconcile with a loss he didn't expect. Fascinating, almost like a natural experiment in ego, pride, and adaptation. Part of me felt a flicker of sympathy, yes, a human acknowledgement of his struggle. But the larger part quietly reveled in the precision, the elegance of the strategy. Cassie's role added just the right dynamic. Composed, confident, with a hint of playful glee, she embodied the success of the plan without mocking Marlon. Later, through texts, we joked about him sneaking in disguise, occupying fire lanes, sending exaggerated office emails. The absurdity amplified the thrill, comedy and strategy intertwined. By midweek, the patterns were undeniable. Marlon moved differently, cautious, calculating, each interaction in the lot now carefully measured. And I observed all this quietly, feeling satisfaction not from conflict, but from subtlety and intellect. The asphalt, the painted lines, were no longer mundane. They were symbolic. Small, calculated moves often carry more weight than loud gestures. Then came the morning that crystallized the lesson. I was walking out of the office after a long meeting, coffee in hand, when I noticed Marlon standing at the lot entrance, arms crossed, frowning like a storm cloud. He glanced at Cassie's car, then at me, letting out a half-laugh, half-grunt, the kind you make when trying to mask defeat with dignity. "All right," he muttered finally, "you win. I get it. You and her, you win." He walked away, and I chuckled softly at the perfect absurdity, ridiculous, petty, yet deeply satisfying in execution. That evening, I stayed later than usual, watching the lot empty, cars pulling away, people oblivious to the subtle dramas that had unfolded. The city hummed, delivery trucks, distant sirens, clinking cups from the cafe. I reflected on the week and the months leading to it, realizing something essential. Life often teaches lessons in miniature. A simple parking spot revealed strategy, patience, and self-awareness in ways a grand confrontation never could. Just as I was about to leave, my phone buzzed. A message from Marlon. I opened it, expecting sarcasm or passive aggressiveness. Instead, "All right, well played. Not just about the spot, huh?" I stared for a moment, then smiled. That single line encapsulated the elegance of subtle strategy, the lesson delivered without confrontation, yet perfectly received. Cassie called shortly after, laughter bubbling through the phone. "You should see him," she said. "He's recalculating life itself. This is amazing." I laughed too, leaning back, savoring the absurdity, humor, and the quiet satisfaction of the plan executed flawlessly. Victory through patience, observation, and timing. No conflict, no drama, just strategy. Even in victory, a lingering thought remained. Life's small battles mirror larger dynamics. Control is rarely absolute. Rules are often invisible. And sometimes, the smallest, quietest moves, executed with precision, carry the weightiest lessons. The parking spot had become a chessboard, the city a stage, and we, unwittingly, actors in a subtle play of patience and cleverness. By the end of Friday, the lot had settled. Cassie was confidently claiming her space. Marlon had adjusted, quietly, humbly, and I finally exhaled, coffee in hand, reflecting on the absurd elegance of it all. The asphalt might look ordinary to a passerby, but to me, it was a battlefield, a microcosm of strategy, ego, and human behavior. So, here's what I want you to think about. If it were your spot, what would you do? Confront, grit your teeth, and fight? Or wait, observe, and make a move no one sees coming? And who really deserves the victory when the rules are invisible and the stakes are subtle? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share your stories of clever wins or subtle revenge. Let's see how many people would choose patience and strategy over confrontation. Because sometimes, the quiet moves speak the loudest, and the lessons go far beyond the asphalt they're fought over.